gentlemen. Good to see you both. So first question to you, Jürgen, I'm going to start with you. Why does longevity matter to you, and why should it matter to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So I believe longevity, for me at least, is not about living forever, but to maximize my healthy lifespan in order to be able to see my grandchildren grow up, eventually play with them, do sports with them, play football with them. And I think that reason should apply to everyone here. I believe nowadays it's quite easy to achieve that. There are a lot of low-hanging fruits out there. Everyone could work on, so to say. You just have to sleep well. You just get a healthy diet in, work out, and yeah, that's a huge leverage we have right now. And I would tell everyone to start with that and see how quickly your body actually develops.
Brilliant. And you, Siim, what does longevity mean to you?
Yeah, I got interested in longevity as a preventive health tool because my grandfather died to colon cancer when he was 36 years old, way before I was born even. So I didn't want to get some sort of a chronic disease early in life myself either. So I wanted to, go beyond just fitness, which I was into before that, and I wanted to take a more preventive health approach. I also studied anthropology at the time, and anthropology is a field that is covering many aspects: human culture, archaeology, evolution, pretty much everything about humans and all different types of humanitarian fields. And as an anthropologist, I was interested in, I guess, the future of the human species. Obviously the past is interesting, but the future can be even more exciting. And longevity is something that is just a very scientifically hard problem to solve. So obviously weight loss and diabetes, etc., they're relatively simple diseases in the sense that we know what causes them, we know how to reverse them. Obviously the practical application isn't always easy, but life extension, reversing aging, making people live decades longer is a very hard problem to solve. So I wanted to dig deep into that as well as a scientific problem. Okay, how do you actually fix it? How do you achieve it? And also what are the other ethical implications and societal implications that follow if we ever were to, quote unquote, fix aging or make people live decades longer.
I just want to ask a question to the audience. Who here is here because of something that happened to their health or the health of a loved one? Okay, interesting, very interesting. I really want to ask a question that goes into, we all think about living long as, the diet, the exercise, the this and that, but actually preventing early onset is also an important thing. Jürgen, given that you're working and you've got your clinic, like how far is technology going now to prevent to better detect early onset of, let's say, cancer?
Yeah, so technology is advancing quite quickly. At least in our clinic, we are already using AI to detect skin cancer, for example. We even have a retina scan that can detect heart risks and so on and so forth. The real problem I see is that it's still very fragmented, and we haven't quite yet gotten into a phase where it's being introduced all together. And as soon as we are capable of doing that, we will see major breakthroughs.
Siim, I notice you're not wearing any wearables. You've got a gold ring. As someone who is one of the leading biohackers in Europe, how do you measure yourself?
Measure.
Just measure. And also, do you go to a clinic? Do you get measured? Do you do early onset, like MRI scans or anything like that?
Yeah, I do comprehensive health tracking for myself. I track blood work, I track my bone density, VO2 max. I take MRI, not not very frequently, but occasionally. So I do comprehensive health tracking for myself for the major risk factors and major chronic diseases. I don't do a lot of daily tracking, so I don't track my sleep regularly. I don't track my blood sugar, regularly, because I think, or at least I just find it not necessary. It's mostly like a convenience thing. So you have to charge the ring. You sometimes forget to charge the ring, and then it just collects zero data, etc. So I don't find it useful for me to track it all the time because my regular routine or lifestyle hasn't changed that much. So I'm not expecting any big fluctuations in my sleep quality or sleep duration or HRV or things like that. I did have like an 8-sleep mattress before, and this one just tracked it all the time. You don't have to charge it, so it's always on. So that one, I could have found more useful because of I didn't have to charge it. But the ring is I just forget to charge it sometimes.
Fair enough. Moving on to, on my podcast, we talk to a lot of the leading scientists, academics, entrepreneurs in the cell and gene therapy space. This is the kind of stuff that is going to move the needle like crazily. It's also something that needs a lot of research, and it's going to take us quite a lot of time there. As an example, I had Liz Parrish on the podcast that talked about gene therapy. She was one of the first people to take gene therapy for anti-aging purposes, and how she felt after taking it was pretty remarkable. If you look at her again, there's only been I think 350 people that have taken gene therapy for anti-aging purposes. In terms of stem cells, in terms of tissue repair, in terms of all these advanced therapeutics, are there any that you are particularly excited about, Jürgen?
Well, there's quite a lot in clinical use already. I know, we can, for example, repair skin. Yeah, we see companies who kind of lab grow skin and use that, but this is all about repairing really. What we don't see yet is to actually grow proper organs, and I believe that's probably going to take at least another decade or so, but that's going to be the major breakthrough in my point of view.
So you think replacement's actually going to take over from repair? And I think for anyone who doesn't know, replacement is the idea that eventually the most extreme version of that is whole body replacement. And so you're basically taking your brain and plugging it on. It's incredibly extreme. There's a lot of people, including pretty much everyone here, that I'm sure will raise the ethical concerns around that. Siim, what do you think of that?
The whole body replacement, anything?
Repair, replacement, all of it, yeah.
Well, I think they're all something that... So, when it comes to life extension, then exercising and taking some supplements, they're not going to make you live to 150 or 200. You will need to do something that is more dramatic and more powerful, such as gene editing. So you turn on some longevity genes, you turn off bad genes. You need to do some sort of damage repair that you reduce the physical damage on your body, and rejuvenation as well. So you probably need to do a lot of things combined. Interesting, there was a recent study that became popular online with monkeys in China, where they genetically engineered some human stem cells, and those monkeys had a reduction in their biological age scores. That's kind of a first step that probably will be one of the initial, therapies available in the next few decades. Some form of gene editing, minor gene editing that we know generally will have positive longevity effects in combination with things like stem cells or exosomes. But again, these things are still even not powerful enough to make humans live exponentially longer. But it's a kind of first step that we have to take. But yeah, in the most extreme example, in hundreds of years, we'll be able to grow cultured organs. You'll be able to replace them, and then you're going to reach problems about like the hard problem of consciousness. So okay, if you replace every cell in your body, but you only have your brain left, are you still going to be you? Because people think that okay, my consciousness is in my brain, but that's not really the case. We don't know where your consciousness is. We don't really know what creates your consciousness. Is it the combination of, is it like an emerging phenomenon? Is it something located in some specific organ or something like that? So we don't know the answer to that. So then the issue is, okay, if you replace every organ, replace every cell, you're literally like a robot with your human brain, are you still you, or are you going to be something else? And will you remember your past memories? Will you remember your current human form in that form?
It's a very interesting point. Just a quick audience check. Who here, I'm going to go up in numbers. Who here is happy to live until they're 70? Put your hand up. What about 80? 90? 100? Actually, keep your hand up. 110? 120? Forever. Okay, we've got a few people that want, what about guys? Would you want to, what year would you like to pass?
Well, I always, so I don't, maybe 100 would be good. Like a good idea for me is to live across 3 centuries. So I was born 1993. So I would like to live until the age of 106 at least. So I'll be living in 20th century, 21st and 22nd. But I don't have any like hard goal. Like in my head, the actual kind of fun thing to do would be that you stay alive until you figure out immortality. You're able to choose to be immortal, but then you choose to die. Yeah. Because there's nothing like virtuous in dying, because no one has a choice, right? Everyone will die, at least based on the current status quo. Like every one of us will die, so there's nothing virtuous about it. But if you had the choice, the option to die, then that could be a virtuous thing because you're voluntarily dying, right?
Yeah.
So I would first like to reach immortality and then choose to die.
It's such an interesting point, because when we ask the question, a lot of people will say, yeah, I'm happy to die at 80. Ask that to someone who's 79. To say, we had Mehmet Khan from Evolution on the podcast, and he said that people want to feel independent in themselves and then financially independent. If they've still got that, they're happy to live longer as well. But it's an interesting conundrum, right? Because we also have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many people are dealing with other stuff. They're not dealing about like, I want to live forever, because they're dealing with other stuff. I'm not saying that I personally want to live forever, but it's a question that I think is something that only a very few people can actually think about, because other people are dealing with just all the challenges and issues of life. In terms of what people come to you at their clinic for, like what are the key kind of problem areas, and how do you help them? And also, how do you see your clinic evolving over the next decade or so with new technologies?
So most people coming to our clinic, they are actually looking for guidance. You know, you have all these ideas out there. Almost every week there are new studies telling you this is the new thing, this is the new thing, do this, and they're getting lost in it. So they first and foremost are looking for guidance, and they want to establish a baseline on their health, really. And we do that running our very deep diagnostics, and then it's quite interesting what we see. So all the evidence, all the science, all the data alone doesn't really change behavior of our clients. They need someone to trust, our doctors and our coaches, and then they need guidance. And the most important thing we found is simplicity. So you can, I don't know, take 1,000 data points, but if you're not able to translate them into 3 or 4 or 5 clear action points and a path, you lose the people. So, yeah, what's years gonna be like in a few years? We will be focusing much more on the part after the baseline diagnostic, on the guidance part, to actually help people change behavior for good.
I love that. Do you think the sort of technologies that you're developing and the idea of these kind of longevity clinics will be soon made available to a larger part of the population?
Many factors that weigh into that one. I always believe kind of into the Tesla principle. So at the beginning, every new innovation, any new idea is only available for a few. But if we kind of put the revenue we are generating by the few people into R&D, into scaling. At some point, it will be available for more people if, of course, politics help us achieve it. You know, at least in Germany, reimbursement of these things is quite a big factor, and obviously we need politics to play along.
Very interesting. What do you think, Siim?
Well, it would be financially a good idea for governments to try to make people healthier. So the average life expectancy is increasing in developed countries, but you know, the worst case scenario is that people live longer, and you know, for lack of a better word, they're on more burden on the healthcare system as well for longer. So it's not about just, you know, making people live longer. It's about actually making them healthier so that they would have higher quality of life later in life and higher life expectancy or the health span as well. So that would reduce, you know, the healthcare costs, and that also just makes people happier as well to stay alive for longer. Because a lot of the reasons why people say, I don't want to live to the age of 100 is because, you know, if you're 100 years old, you can't move, you can't do anything. So people associate the age 100 with these bad outcomes and the worst quality of life. But you know, the best case scenario is that you are 100, but you're physically as functional as someone who's 50 years old or 40 years old, for example. Yeah. So that's what, in the government, let's say government level and the societal level, the initial focus will be probably on just reducing the burden of chronic diseases so that you reduce the healthcare costs, and that people would just have a higher quality of life, a higher health span for longer as well. And then maybe later they might pivot more towards actual life extension, but obviously that's not the first priority.
Yeah, the most valuable person to society is a healthy 65 to 70-year-old, because they have basically acquired 45, 50 years, whatever, of lived experience. And so you really need healthy people into their 70s now as we get more of aging populations, especially when you think about East Asian countries that are really suffering with low fertility rates. All right, let's have a bit of fun. The big moonshots that are going to completely shift the needle forward in this space. I'm thinking embryo selection, gene editing, crazy stem cells, whole body replacement, etc. What are you guys most excited about? Jürgen, what can I expect? If I were to go to your clinic in 15 years' time, what would be that thing?
Yeah, so what we are working on with our clinic is to understand aging and age-related diseases, because as of now, we don't really know in many cases, e.g. not external factors, why we actually age. And in order to do so, you need to build longitudinal data sets of multi-omics.
Yep.
And once we achieve that, we will be able to detect risk ages before they actually appear. So I believe that's not so far away anymore, maybe 10 to 15 years, but that will be the major breakthrough in my point of view.
So give us an example of that, like paint a picture. Would that mean that, let's say, me as someone who is X age, X ethnicity, X this and that, you've got my wearable data, you know that in 2 years and 3 months' time, I am likely to get X disease.
Exactly.
At that granular level.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. And how far do you think that's away from happening?
Depends on how many other companies are trying to tackle this problem. If you just take us, for example, we are 10 to 12 years out.
Okay, awesome. And Siim, what are you most excited about? A moonshot that you think is going to really move the needle forward in the next 10, 15 years?
Well, I think, you know, gene editing is something that will be one of the more bigger breakthroughs. So the reason why some people live very long, like 115, 20 years, etc., is because they have very favorable genetics that lower the risk of these chronic diseases and also slow down their speed of biological aging. So if you were to figure out, okay, what are these cluster of genes, you know, some of them we already know about, so like, okay, everyone will get this, that, for example, ApoE4, we already have very established data that ApoE4 phenotype or genotype is associated with a higher risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease, and vice versa. Those with a ApoE2 allele have significantly lower rates of Alzheimer's and also greater longevity overall. So there's multiple benefits for ApoE2 alleles. Now, maybe you could do some form of gene therapy to everyone gets ApoE2, for example. And now the ApoE4 has some evolutionary reason why it exists, right? Mostly in the past, there was other environmental risks that made that phenotype or genotype more advantageous. But in the modern world, we kind of have a different environment, and we also would require like a different set of genes. So those are like very low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, like FOXO3, IGF-1, ApoE4, and ApoE2, a few other genes that we already know are associated with greater longevity in humans. So maybe like a handful of genes, like five, six of them, theoretically could also be already done for gene therapy. Right, obviously, right now they don't exist yet. Right now, the only gene therapies are something related to like follistatin, which is a muscle growth gene, and the evidence for their effectiveness is still very limited. So it's hard to know if it actually does work or not. But let's say in the next, I wouldn't say 10, 15 years, but maybe 20 years, probably we'll have some, let's say, gene therapies that have a bit more evidence. But even then, I don't think it will become like just readily available that everyone can just get it. You will still have, you have to be a slightly earlier adopter in that case. Right now, I would definitely not do some gene therapy to go to some sort of a private island and get 30K of injection and not knowing if it actually works. So right now, it definitely has very limited evidence, but hopefully in the next 10 to 20 years, we might have something.
Very interesting. I just want to ask a question to everyone here. Put your hands up or not. You know that feeling when you're 20 years old and you go out, you're at college, university, you have a few drinks, lots of drinks, and then you wake up the next morning and you feel okay and you can carry on the rest of your day. I'm sure a lot of you miss that feeling, right? I'm not sure how many of you still drink. Would you take a gene therapy if it would allow you to have that same sort of recovery time that you used to have as a 20-year-old? Do you want to put your hands up if you would actually take that gene therapy? And who would not take that gene therapy? I don't know if we can get a mic for people to maybe say why they wouldn't take it. But maybe you can shout out why you wouldn't take the gene therapy. You can just give you a mic here.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a bit extra to go through that process just to get that out of it. I would be interested in it for other opportunities. Yeah.
I was just giving an example that people could relate to, but yeah, of course. Anyone else why they wouldn't take it? Yeah, over here.
For the first, alcohol is a poison, I know that. But if I had to drink, I could be well the next day because I know how to do it.
I'm sorry, I was just using an example. I think the question really is, would you take gene therapy?
No.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Onwards to a crystal ball question. Imagine it's 2040. What does the life of a 70-year-old look like? And I'm going to give an example of something that Aaron D'Souza, who's the founder of the Enhanced Games, gave me. He believes that in 15 years' time, there will be 60-year-olds, 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds even, that can run as fast as Usain Bolt. I know it's a crazy example, but guys, over to you. What will the average 70-year-old look like in 15 years' time, or potentially could look like?
Yeah, I'm a bit more conservative on that one, but I'm sure that 70-year-old people by 240 will be as healthy as 45 to 50-year people right now, definitely.
Siim.
Right. Yeah, like someone who would be 70 in 2040, they would be 55 right now. So let's say, I don't know, Joe Rogan, I think he's 55. In 2040, I mean, he's obviously still going to, so it depends, if there's a difference obviously between plastic surgery and actual biological age reversal. Someone could just take plastic surgery and look like 30 or 40 years old. But
what they feel like inside.
Yeah.
What they'll be able to do.
I do think that so initially in the first, let's say a few decades, the idea, the idea behind the longevity escape velocity isn't that, okay, in 2040 we're immediately immortal. It's about you're catching this kind of a wave that, okay, when you're healthy in 2040, the actual breakthroughs will come in, let's say, 2060 or 2075. So if you're healthy in 2040, you're going to reach the benefits of these initial breakthrough technologies that, okay, maybe eliminate cancer or eliminate Alzheimer's, for example. So you have an additional few decades where you could stay alive, hypothetically, until the age of 90, when we will actually make these massive breakthroughs like gene therapies that will turn you into like a 20-year-old. So in the next 15 years at 2040, you're just going to probably potentially halt the speed of aging. That, okay, Joe Rogan is still going to be as fit and healthy as he is right now. And so he's not degenerating for the next 15 years, but he's maintaining it, what it currently has. He's probably not going to reverse himself back to a 40-year-old, but he's possibly staying within the range of 55 to 60, rather than an actual 70-year-old or 80-year-old.
Yeah, there's this idea of longevity escape velocity, this idea of reaching biological or physical immortality, and Aubrey de Grey and some people talk about that. And Aubrey de Grey thinks it will happen in the late 2030s, and that basically means you can start reversing your age, which is crazy. 15 years potentially out from immortality, which sounds very scary, and there's going to be obviously a lot of ethical questions raised by that. If there's one piece of advice you guys could give to everyone in the audience to take an important step in their longevity journey today, what would it be? Siim.
I think getting a good baseline of your health, so understanding your health risks currently. So, do you have diabetes, or do you have low bone density? Do you have some, God forbid, like, some cancer or something like that? So just being aware of your current health status. Are you, in what kind of a health state are you? Are you in a very poor metabolic health? Are you in very good metabolic health? Are you in a risk of future heart disease in 20 years because of your poor lipids or poor blood pressure, etc.? Just being aware of that will be very important to know. Okay, so let's say the goal is I need to stay healthy until 2040. Will I reach it? Will I reach 2040, or will my risk of these chronic diseases increase exponentially before that?
Brilliant. Jürgen.
Yeah, exactly the same. Test your biomarkers, establish your health baseline, understand your weaknesses, find some suitable interventions, and then get retested and see if your interventions actually worked. If they worked, well, move on. If not, find some different intervention until your risk's lower.
We're in a room full of lots of different ideas and concepts and hyperbaric chambers and liver tests and everything, right? Without mentioning said companies out there, what would you say is the most overhyped product or thing in the longevity space right now?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few supplements out there which are completely useless.
Okay. Anyone in particular?
I leave it like that.
Siim.
Yeah, well, do you think a few supplements can be overrated? Things like resveratrol or spermidine or some of those NMN and R. They do have some effects, but they're not going to make you immortal.
Yeah, it's crazy how much how much longevity supplement companies sell NMN. It's crazy. In terms of the most underrated out there, what would it be?
Yeah, again, unfortunately, the basics: sleep, healthy diet, and working out every now and then. That's the biggest leverage we have, and since it's so easy for everyone to get, I believe it's boring and thus underrated.
I would say maybe saunas, are a bit underrated, so that they have a lot of cardiovascular benefits and benefits on Alzheimer's risk and blood pressure, etc. So beyond just the basics, a regular sauna practice can be quite useful.
Brilliant. We'll see you at the sauna later then. Do we have any questions from the audience before we round up about the future of longevity for the panelists? Any questions? Got a question over here. If we can get a mic to the lady over here. And if you want to just address the question to someone or to the whole panel, and say your name as well.
Hi. So you talked a lot about the things that we can do physically, but are you also taking into consideration the emotions? Like, for example, repressed emotions and that impact on, for example, autoimmune diseases and cancer risk and stuff like that. I didn't hear any mention of it, which is why I would be like super curious to hear if that is something you also consider.
So I'm going to take that first of all, because mindset, how we build abundant, resilient, optimistic mindsets is like so core to everything. My journey has been like a very long journey of healing. And so we didn't talk about it on this panel, but I think for me, and again, psychedelics and plant medicine are not, you can't prescribe them in this country, so I've got to be careful of what I say, but I see there's just such promising research, especially if people are doing the work beforehand. Like, I believe, again, you're so right that we didn't mention that. It just didn't happen to be in the question. So we've had a lot of panels today on psychological abuse and emotions, but I think it's going to be a core tenet. I think it's the unforgotten part of longevity. You can't have obsession with VO2 max without really finding meaning and purpose in life. Actually, optimists live 15% longer than people are not optimists. Actually, I think the two greatest indicators of long life are, do you have purpose in your life, and how strong are your social connections and your community as well? So for me, like that is the most important part of longevity for me, and it's a part, if do check out my Instagram, I talk about mindset pretty much only, and stay away from the longevity stuff, because I think it's the unforgotten part of the longevity movement, for sure. Guys, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, completely agree with you. I believe that positive mindset, emotions, a strong community, and smiling, laughing, being easy is a very, very strong leverage on living healthy.
Yeah, well, I think it's a kind of prerequisite that to live long, if you want to live longer, then you're probably enjoying it, right? So yeah, if you don't enjoy your life, then you probably don't want to live longer. So it's there is research that good mental health and positive emotions might be even causal in longevity. But yeah, I think it's more like a prerequisite as well, that if you don't enjoy your life, then you're probably not even going to do the healthy things that will make you live longer.
Just two things on that, actually. That I mentioned it beforehand, but there was a beautiful picture on a meme with Brian Johnson, and next to him, an 85-year-old Italian man. And it was, this Italian man drinks wine, he eats gelato and smokes cigarettes a day, and he's going to live longer than Brian Johnson does everything. And it's, again, it's a kind of jokey meme, but when you eat like the Mediterranean diet, you have community, you laugh, you enjoy life, you also live longer as well. So, do you have any other questions before we wrap up? I know we're just one more question here.
Hi, I'm just curious about your opinion about mushrooms, both with and without psilocybin.
Nice. Do you want to start, Siim?
Yeah, the recent study on psilocybin saw that it did extend lifespan in worms, if I'm not mistaken. So there might be some evidence for that as well in the future for humans, but right now it's more like in the trauma space and mental health field. So it's hard to say what would the implications for like actual hard life extension be. It probably has to do with certain like anti-inflammatory properties in these mushrooms. So you probably might not need the psilocybin per se. It might have to do, you can achieve probably like some similar effects with other medicinal mushrooms that don't necessarily have that. But yeah, I think the psilocybin is more, useful in like the PTSD kind of area.
So I just want to say something about that because I had, again, I talk about my podcast a lot. I had Christian Angermeyer on the podcast. He's the leading biotech psychedelics investor and entrepreneur out there at Atai Life Sciences, and they're really the trailblazers in this space. And we are coming to this insane time in the human story where AI and there's so many changes that are going to happen. And the one thing that really is the mind killer, no doubt, is fear. And he really believes that psychedelics will be the antidote to that. And again, he's making money from it, but I will speak anecdotally as someone that's gone on a number of plant medicine journeys that, and again, this is anecdotal, I did it in a legal setting, in a legal country, but the transformation on my immune system, on my emotional health, on dealing with not just trauma from my life, but pre-verbal trauma, and if you believe it, in generational trauma, has been incredible. And I am a huge advocate of it, caveating that the work has to be done beforehand. And that is just my anecdotal spiel. But again, that's not a recommendation, that's just how it's affected me. And I'm so looking forward to more research coming out there and more people expressing how it's transformed their lives. And again, there's a huge caveat there. This is not an invitation for people to go out there. There is definitely a journey that needs to happen. And more than happy to have a conversation with anyone about it. Yeah. Anything else to add on that, Jürgen, or we good?
Sums it up.
Brilliant, and it's just hit 0. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining this panel. Please do give these guys a massive round of applause.